Hi, everybody. Welcome to Decoded. My name is Andrew Gibbs. I'm the founder of Dieline, and I'm so thankful to have you here today. With Decoded, our goal is for you to take away fresh inspiration and learn some behind-the-scenes tips and tricks to pitching, concepting, developing, and designing Dieline-worthy brands. And today, we will be decoding the design process behind the rebranding of the iconic ice cream brand Häagen-Dazs. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce our next guest. Jon Arriaza is a senior design director at Chase Design Group. Jon is a native of Los Angeles and started working at Chase Design Group in 2012, where he added his creative touch to a wide array of projects for clients such as the CW Network, Nestle, and PepsiCo. Jon's diverse set of skills and creativity, combined with a strategic mindset, contribute to his success designing and directing for brands large and small across a wide variety of genres and disciplines, including packaging, entertainment, and environmental design. Rachel Jaiven is the marketing director for Häagen-Dazs and New Ventures at Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream. She's a successful and inclusive strategic leader with 15 years in marketing on 10 plus brands in the beverage and ice cream categories. She has a proven record of driving strong business results across brands in different life cycles and varying complexity. Rachel is a strong marketer with experience developing and leading high ROI marketing campaigns at varying investment levels. Please welcome Jon and Rachel.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Jessica. We're really excited to be here as part of the Decoded series with y'all. And we're here to share with you this presentation that we're calling Luxury Redefined. And we're going to walk you through just the amazing process behind the Häagen-Dazs redesign and this collaboration between Chase Design Group and the Häagen-Dazs team. I am Jon Arriaza. I'm a senior design director with Chase Design Group. I've been with Chase since 2012, and I've had the pleasure of working with all kinds of different brands, a lot of rebrands, a lot of new brands, redesigns, all that from the whole gamut, designing, directing, and across the board. And I'm here with someone even more awesome, who I will allow herself to introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Jon. Hi, my name is Rachel Jaiven, and I have the lovely pleasure of being the marketing director on the Häagen-Dazs brand here in the United States. I have worked in ice cream for 9 years and a couple years before that in the beverage business. But my favorite assignment over all these years has been working certainly on Häagen-Dazs. I've been on Häagen-Dazs for a couple of years now, but the most exciting year has absolutely been this last year. And one of the most fun and also thrilling projects has been working on the redesign and repositioning of Häagen-Dazs. Absolutely one of the biggest and most exciting ones that I've worked on in my career so far. So to share with you a little about that over the next little bit. So what I will do is share a bit of a background on Häagen-Dazs and the why and the how we were doing it, and we'll show sort of the work. Jon will take you through that in a minute. So I'll start first with a little bit of brand history if you're not familiar with Häagen-Dazs. This lovely brand was started in 1960 by a gentleman named Reuben Mattis in New York. And he had this vision to really redefine what ice cream was for consumers back then. The past, it was really sort of a very standard product, rather icy, not the most exciting, very basic flavors. And Reuben had this vision to really bring forward a luxury, high quality ice cream like no one had had before. He took this vision and, created incredible flavors that he spent a really long time developing and getting just right. He was a perfectionist and had absolutely the most high expectations about what he wanted to bring to market. And part of that was also creating a design and a name that sort of stood for luxury. The name Häagen-Dazs actually is made up. It doesn't mean anything, but it was made up after many different iterations with Reuben and his family trying to think about something that sounded luxurious, fancy, and at that time, something that sounded European. That was what was in fashion back then. And so the packaging was really designed with that in mind. And that's sort of the design you see there was the original design for Häagen-Dazs. Häagen-Dazs has had a storied history since then. We opened our first scoop shop in Brooklyn in 1976, and then beyond that, we've had many different ways that we've shown up to consumers across different products, shops, and many things over the years that have been really exciting. So that's a little bit of the history. So why evolve now? Really, this is part of the brief that we talked about with Chase, and frankly, with a repositioning for Häagen-Dazs, was thinking about how do we push the brand into its next level of growth. Our brand was growing, it is growing in sales, but it wasn't growing as fast as the category. So we knew we had something we need to fix there. The other thing is that Häagen-Dazs has very high awareness, but lower consideration by key audiences who really saw us as old-fashioned. And by lower considerations, people are like, yes, I know Häagen-Dazs, but maybe it's not for me. And we need to make sure that those younger consumers and other key people, who are in the ice cream eating business, who are looking for treats, that they really do think of Häagen-Dazs as a brand for them. And then finally, a key challenge that we need to overcome is this rational brand identity. Häagen-Dazs has stood for many, many years and always will for the highest quality. But it's very rational, and what we need to unlock is absolutely that more emotional territory, something that really evokes that love, that just irrational love. So that's the challenge that we put forward to Chase, along with some of the other elements of a redesign and repositioning to be able to help evolve. So if we move to the next slide, these are a couple of different slides that share a little bit about behind the scenes of inspiration for our brief. And I think these are very helpful because it just sort of shows a bit about how we think about the brand and also how we can cue to where we need to go, the vision. So we spoke about how we've been on a pedestal. Häagen-Dazs has always been on a pedestal, a little bit unrelatable and old-fashioned. That feeling we have to overcome. The next slide talks a little bit about, this idea of what luxury stands for. Back in 1960, that was this European code, right? More fancy, really, this beautiful tapestry. But that was back in 1960, and we've evolved this definition of luxury over time, but we know we needed to do that now. Today's view of luxury is absolutely shifting, where people are thinking about more of these authentic experiences that are a little bit more real and relatable rather than perfect on this pedestal. And then the next one is really just that final goal that we have, which is around moving away from that old definition of luxury to something that's a little bit forward-reaching. And packaging is super important on that, because for us in the ice cream business, we have many different flavors. We also sit in a very busy and lovely aisle, but it's behind a glass door. We need to make sure that our packaging really speaks to consumers in a way that does make it feel luxurious and exciting to come visit. So really the brief to Chase was, how do we really reimagine Häagen-Dazs for the future? This final slide shares a little bit, or excuse me, I have one more slide after this. This shares a little bit about the vision board, this really visual board that we used with the briefing process with Chase to share a little about where and how and why we were evolving. We talk about high quality, we talk about being playful and luxury, but how do you show that, right? What is the definition of luxury that we wanted to show, right? It could be Beverly Hills, but maybe we want to be, Abbott Kinney. What is this idea of playfulness? Like, how does that show up? Is that the dripping of an ingredient? Is that, some of the textures? Is that sort of the way that someone might be dressing? So I think that, these are really important cues that helped us as we went through this process with Chase to say, here's what we're thinking about the definition of luxuriously playful ice cream for Häagen-Dazs. And the final slide before I hand it over to Jon for the real juicy stuff is, really about the consumer target. At the end of the day, we're trying to win that love and adoration of consumers, right? That is the irrational love that I am seeking for Häagen-Dazs. And it's really important for us to think about who and why and how we're going to do that. And our consumer target, we talk about them as being sort of these discerning purists. They're people who love really high quality things, that want to experience it. They're curious, they're fun, they're living those authentic moments. So everything we do has to be thought through from that perspective. So I am going to stop there. I'll come back at the end after Jon talks through the design process. But here now you can see a little bit about what we've done.
Totally. Thanks, Rachel. And I just want to preface this with, Häagen-Dazs, just as a brand, they have so much history. There's so much love for the brand that without that strategy that the Häagen-Dazs team, gave to us, we took that, and we really kind of just jumped off with it, ran with it, and expanded on it and made it come to life. And without that strategy, it's really hard to kind of tackle a redesign like this, right? So, looking at where we were, Rachel kind of already hit on this, right? It's actually, it was really beautiful, right? I think when we talked about this, we would definitely want to honor the previous design for what it was. And, it was clean. It was, it had very delicious photography, and it had a lot working for it. But, with the way things are moving and where we wanted to be, or, where Häagen-Dazs wanted to be as a brand, it needed a refresh. So we took a step back, we looked at the previous packaging, and we analyzed all the pieces, and we wanted to make sure that we were changing the right things and that we were keeping the right things, right? So we dissected all the pieces, the tapestry, right? It was beautiful. It was very well done and very well crafted, but the style itself was dated. It felt a little tight, a little too dense. It kind of felt like, your grandma's doily in a way. And I say that in the most respectful way because those are beautiful for what they are. And then there's a lot of storytelling in that tapestry that just wasn't coming through. It was so abstract and so detailed that it was getting lost. So how can we update that, right? The logo, the colors, we noted very early on that the colors felt like old school premium, right? The white and black and gold accents, right? It's very old school premium. And, also from a color standpoint, Häagen-Dazs has a lot of flavors, and you'll come to learn this by the end of this presentation. And they weren't getting the credit for it because really the only color cue that was on the pack was the photography, which is really beautiful and minimal. But when you saw them at shelf, at a glance, you weren't getting the variety. And then typography, right? Super clean, super, modern, but it also felt a little bit sterile, right? So how can we bring in more personality to that? And as part of the brief, which is, very interesting, they pretty much said, don't touch our logo. And then the rest is on the table, right? It's, so I don't know if you want to expand on this, Rachel, at all. But,
yeah, we talked a lot about, brand assets are very important, right? And logos especially. This logo, we've been using for many, many years, and we certainly didn't want to walk away from it. I think you'll see, obviously, that there were some changes, but we started there saying this has to stay because it is a really critical part of the brand. But we'll reveal a little bit later where we landed.
Cool. So we're going to walk you through some of the round one work that we did when we presented to Häagen-Dazs. We're not going to show you everything because we presented more than this, but we wanted to show you a few designs that really inspired something for the final design. So this first one was our closest in option. We updated all the elements from the tapestry to the photography, even the typography, and we were even challenging the use of white, but still trying to keep it minimal and simple, right? And this idea of like a pure ingredient, but bring in more color here and there and more personality. And then this next concept, we loosened it up a bit, right? We wanted to take that tapestry and bring more flowiness to it, more movement. I think movement was a big piece that we wanted to convey. And also, just looking at using more color to create more flavor differentiation. And then this third concept, we really started to challenge the use and the role of the tapestry, right? So up until this point, the tapestry has been like a full backdrop. And so we wanted to challenge that and see, hey, can the tapestry become more like an accent, right? So this one, the tapestry itself didn't evolve as much, but we brought in more color. We brought in literal representations of the product and really just wanted to create this color blocking that felt more vibrant and more energetic. And then lastly, we presented this concept, which was for sure the furthest out. But surprisingly enough, this had an energy that kind of made everyone question the role of this redesign, right? We obviously didn't end up with this design, but the movement, the artfulness, and the energy, all really kind of got us questioning, hey, what are we keeping and why, right? And ultimately, these were the two designs that kind of influenced the final design for different reasons. But the feedback that we got was, hey, we like the color, we like the looseness, but we need more of that fun and energy that we had in that, in this previous concept here that, we showed. And, we also learned in this process that, white was important, right? And I think that was one of the things that we also learned from this one, because we kept white in here, and the others, they kind of just felt a little bit drab. And so these were all, words that Rachel kind of spoke to us, and so they're deep in my brain at this point. But it also got us questioning, hey, why are we keeping the things that we're keeping? And that brings us to the logo, right? And I don't know if you want to talk about this, Rachel.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, I think, we mentioned before that, one of the sacred cows of a brief was, don't mess with that logo. It's been established, it's very clear, and we don't want to move away from it. But as we evolved the designs, and as Jon mentioned, as we started to see all the elements come together, we recognized that there was an opportunity to improve to refresh the logo. And in fact, we have a global Häagen-Dazs business. Well, there is a global Häagen-Dazs business, and they launched with the designed logo there you see on the right-hand side a couple years back, and we had not adopted it here in the United States just yet. And so we took the opportunity to say, let's apply that logo. Let's align our logos globally, but really for the reason to tie the design more clearly and cohesively to the more modern, luxury brand that we wanted to put out there. So if the next slide, Jon, if you want to hit to the next slide, you'll see sort of what and how we did that. And I'll let you talk through the fun design parts of it, but it really did a magical sort of finishing touch, in my opinion.
Definitely. And, it actually hit some of our initial analysis. When we look at the original package and we analyze it, right? The colors of the logo felt a bit dated. This actually kind of helped that a lot. So the logo just being wider, it created more air around the Häagen-Dazs wordmark. The one color treatment in the burgundy helped make it feel more modern, took it away from that black and white and gold old school premium. And then it still, created this awesome bullseye where we can allow this tapestry, this background that we created to kind of really travel the pack. And you can see just right off the bat when you look at the before and after, there's more energy. The imagery is more organic, right? It's not so perfectly staged. The typography has some personality now that we're mixing some fonts together and all that. And all in all, it just came together really well. And then when we look at it, as a family, you'll start to see hey, there's actually a lot of flavors here. And now each one can really be unique. And so, when you look at pistachio, it has its unique tapestry. All of these were hand-drawn tapestries per flavor. And even, the color, each one gets its own color palette. And it's just really exciting to see how it came out. And we're going to just go through just some beauty shots here, different flavors. And I think one of the things that this allowed Häagen-Dazs was it gave them the license to be more loose, with everything, right? So with the photography, now they can get a little messy, and it still, connects to packaging and all that. And then looking at the family, right? So we had to design these for all kinds of different forms, right? So we have our pints, we have our large bars, we have our mini bars, we have our singles, etc. And each one has to kind of tell a unique flavor story, and really stay and maintain that kind of pure and artful vibe. And then in terms of the tapestry illustrations, we really wanted to just highlight some of this because we're really proud of it at Chase. All these tapestries, are basically a piece of art on their own. They're all unique to each flavor, and we really looked at each flavor cue in the tapestries as an opportunity to get creative. I mean, we could have easily drawn a raspberry and it would have been basic. You would have known that it's a raspberry, but we wanted to make sure that it was artful, right? And so the way that the gold lines kind of connect everything, the way it kind of weaves in and out of the flavor, and even the use of color, right? You'll notice that a lot of these still have cream, right? That is to represent the ice cream in it, right? And the multiple tones of color to create more depth, more movement in the packaging, right? And that's for every flavor,
Yeah, and Jon, one thing that I'll just add is that as we talked through the tapestry, we really wanted to make sure that it still had sort of a story, not like a one that people had to discover, because we recognized that with the previous design that it was, kind of very difficult to sort of piece together what the story was, but that the elements made sense, right? That there was a purpose behind it. It wasn't just there for beauty, it had some purpose. So, the work that was done is just fantastic. The individual stories across a huge portfolio that you'll see in a minute, how well we've been able to do that.
Definitely. And then, looking at the mouth-watering photography, a lot of work went into this, right? And, ultimately for the consumer, it's like, yeah, it's a strawberry on pack, but it captivates you in a way that, you can't really put into words, right? So we had a large amount of flavors to kind of, extend to. And, with the speed that we were moving, there was no way that we were gonna be able to Photoshop everything. And so we started to sketch, each flavor ahead of the photo shoot. This ended up being a great process for us. And thankfully, we've got a solid team who we pride ourselves on our hand skills. And so, what you're seeing here is, on the left was our sketch, and on the right is what ended up being on final pack. And, imagine that times, 35 plus flavors, right? And so this is an example of just a few of them, right? This is the sketch, and I'm going to toggle back and forth so you can see how the final ended up, coming to life. But these are what ended up coming on pack. So the sketch and what's on pack. And, this is, an opportunity to just say, hats off to Sarah Remington and Kim, that they were our photography team, who were riding with us on this and allowing us to kind of really dictate the compositions, and they were just so good at making them come to life. Mm-hmm. And lastly, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. Lastly, what's in the font, right? And we talked about, the photography, the tapestry, the color and all that. But we wanted every piece of this design to be artful. And for those of you that know the history of Chase, we're kind of type geeks. We really pride ourselves in typography and custom type. And so we created a font for the Häagen-Dazs packaging called Dazs. And the reason why we created this font was because we wanted something unique, for one, and then two, we wanted something that felt both classic and modern, and that's kind of a balance, tricky balance to do. So we have this font called Dazs that maintains the thick and thins of a very classic typeface, but then it doesn't have any serifs, and that's very intentional, right? So that we can play with the way we use our typography on pack. And we had a lot of fun in even with the special characters like the A with the umlaut over it, and like the funky question mark. And hats off to Paula, our executive creative director, who really had a this happen and seeing it come to life. And just some examples of how that comes to life, right? The way we're mixing fonts on package really helped to kind of give it that more youthful and more expressive feeling. And then just the breadth of designing that we had to do for the tapestry, for the imagery. I mean, it was just an amazing amount of work. It was fun. It really kind of pushed us and pushed our design skills, but in a way that made sense, right? It wasn't beautiful for beautiful sake, right? It was definitely an intentional artfulness that made sense for the brand. And when we look at even the photography of the bars, Like, we could have easily used the same ice cream and just replaced it on each bar. We could have used the same crack and done that, but we made it a point that each of these had to be unique, and the quality shows. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rachel to walk us through what this all means in the real world, because it's all pretty pictures up until this point, but.
Yes, but we have to make sure it works. Yeah, so thank you. It's always so fun looking through that. And, one thing that I should have started off by saying is that, we did this in an incredible amount of time. We briefed Chase in, I think, September of last year, and then our new packaging started to show up on shelf in April. So it was really fast. All that work that Jon just shared with you happened in a really quick time, and the high quality, high standard, everything is just a testament to great partnership and incredible talent. So I had to say that because I think about, again, one of those hallmark projects that you get to work on. It's just tremendous to see that, especially knowing how much work it was. So in terms of results, I did share that, we had a big repositioning that we were working through for Häagen-Dazs, and, packaging as being one of the most critical parts of it. So we launched in 2021 this year with a new packaging design that we just shared with you. We also launched a brand new campaign for Häagen-Dazs that we call That's Dazs, and we invested more behind it. And what's really important is that all those things have to work together in order to put your brand out there in the market and have people, again, reconsider you, right? If you think back to that equation of what our brand challenge was, all these things have to work really well together. Only one, it's not going to be enough if you only do one. So in terms of our campaign, I wanted to put this here mostly because, of course, I'm really proud of it, the marketing campaign that we put out there, but also how critical a beautiful design is and making that really succeed. And everything has to work so well together. So you'll see how prominently we featured the beautiful new designs of strawberry, vanilla, and our dulce de leche. When we first launched our campaign, it hit at the end of April. We started doing our advertising. It was such a key part of it is to have people recognize and see Häagen-Dazs in a new way. So we were really proud about being able to showcase that work in our campaign, and again, put all those forces together where people see you differently on shelf, see you differently out in the market, and of course more frequently because we're spending more behind it. And more importantly, of course, the numbers are really important. It's an indication of our market performance. But of course, like for me, I want to make sure that people see Häagen-Dazs in a different way. And I think what's been really incredible is seeing the consumer response to the redesign, to the new way we're showing up in our communications, and seeing that brand love come through. So if you take a look through this slide, you'll see some lovely things, Dazs awesome, just really fun, clever remarks, but also just this excitement about seeing Häagen-Dazs show up in a new light. So we've gotten great response from consumers, of course, some great coverage and PR, and again, we're really thrilled about the results. So the last part that Jon and I will go through is a little bit about how we did it. So of course, here's the reason we did it. We showed you a little bit about the details of it, the results, but then there is that magic, right, about how we did it. So here's some perspective, that Jon and I sort of put together about why it was so successful. And I mentioned this is a really fast timeline. I believe very firmly that our success was driven by a very strong and clear vision and strategy for this brief. I think everyone hears those words, quality brief, quality results, or good brief, great results, bad brief, bad results. This is, I think, a perfect example of really knowing what we want, being very clear about it, and putting that very distinctly to Chase to give them the freedom with a tight brief to go and do great work. And I think that really helped us immediately out of the gate get to something really amazing. The second sort of piece of wisdom, I think, to pass along was that collaboration and fast decision-making were all really critical to success here. We had really strong leadership from Chase. Jon and I talked all the time, and along with a lot of the other Chase folks, as well as, our team here, to have, collaborative work sessions. We were very open. We were very honest, and sometimes it was, hard to hear from both sides of like, no, or whatever, but that allows for fun, that allows for better idea building, and frankly, faster results, because people know exactly what you need and what you're looking for, and also we understand the perspective from the design team. So I really believe that was the magic sauce here, was the partnership that we had with Chase to make it effective. And then the last piece of wisdom from me, and then Jon can sort of share his perspective, is that I do think it's really critical, and this is a philosophy from a leadership standpoint, to have the brand owner personally involved at every point. I was personally involved in every single meeting with Chase and team to review all the designs. I went to most of the photo sessions when we went and did all the photography. I approved every single Epson to check color, and that was really critical for me to feel that the vision that I had was coming forward, but also helped with faster decision making, right? It's like, nope, I don't have that, or hey, can we adjust that? So I think that really has helped quite a bit in delivering a very clear and cohesive redesign. So that's my the last sage advice, but I'll turn it over to Jon to sort of share a little bit about his perspective.
Yeah, and I think for us, as a branding and packaging agency, there was a lot of passion behind what we did, right? So we caught the vision that the Häagen-Dazs team, Rachel and her team, put forward for us. We saw the potential, and then we had fun pushing the design into an artful place, right? And it's very easy to get a brief and it says, hey, we want to refresh, and then you just do refresh. But we caught the bug, and thankfully we have a really solid team back at the studio, that also caught the bug. And so being able to work fast and love what you're doing is a huge testament to the Chase team as well. I've named Beverly, Ryan, Connor, Paula, myself. We all were very involved in each of these pieces, and it's just really exciting to see how it came out. Yeah, and with that, we'll leave you with this slide to kind of take it all in.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this episode of Decoded. It was great to have both the client and the and we're thrilled to get some questions in from everyone that attended. Thank you, everyone who put in some questions. So I'm just going to get right to it so everyone gets a chance to get their question answered. One question from Melanie is, how many tapestries were created in total?
I'll let Jon answer that.
That's a good question. I think probably around 40, I would say about 40, given all the different forms and sizes that we did. Yeah, I'd say about there.
About 40, wow.
And that's just for packaging, right? Because we did a whole bunch of other ones for off of pack as well. So
for other touch points, wow. We had a question about typefaces, but it might have been before you got into typefaces, but I think it's still relevant. Did you all choose new fonts for the brand?
Yes, for the most part on packaging, we used new fonts. As you saw in the presentation, we actually created a custom font called DAS, right? It has two weights, DAS and DAS Bold. And then we have a custom script that we created as well for the ice cream. And then we also decided to keep Hermé, which was a font that was from the previous design. And that's used in a more subtle way and in a bigger way off of pack. Yeah, that's pretty much our type system there.
Great. Did you have to think about new spaces in the design architecture for new product design directions? I think in your presentation there was a point where Rachel mentioned, ice creams behind a refrigerator, behind, the aisle is very, very, different. It's you kind of have to think about all these environmental elements. So I think that was answered. But I guess maybe the question has to do with like the new product design direction. Like what factors did you have to think about besides those that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the architecture question, yeah, so a lot of what you saw in the presentation was actually the core line, right? And what hasn't come out yet is, the extensions to the core line, like the sorbets and whatnot. So we did have to think about how to flex, the tapestry. How does that change to accommodate a different line or a new product and whatnot? And so, yes, definitely. I think we tend to always want to look at a project from a bird's eye view. So on the architecture question, yeah, we definitely did look at that. And then there was a second question about challenges on the refrigerator. I'm not sure about that.
Oh no, it was just my mentioning it kind of answered it. I think the question came in as Rachel was literally answering the question. Yeah. But our next question is, what's the biggest challenge in aligning with a brand what's the biggest challenge in aligning the brand worldwide? Like the biggest challenge that you had to do to align yourself with the global brand Häagen-Dazs?
I'm happy to answer that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, listen, we that is a really important conversation to have. We're very cooperative and we work with the General Mills team who oversees the global mark outside of the United States. And, I think it's good communication, clear roles and responsibilities, is the best way to put it, that I can share.
Perfect. How many SKUs total? This looks like so many variations. How long? Well, we answered how long the project was. It was a very short time frame, which I commend all of you, like how quick this was the turnaround. But how many SKUs total was the project?
We have over 40 SKUs individual, and then we have different sizes for some of them. So, for example, our vanilla Häagen-Dazs comes in a couple of different sizes. So there are a number of different iterations. Yeah, it was a massive, massive lift. And what I'll say, just because I know there were some questions around timing, and I had mentioned that when we did the recorded session, the first wave hit in April, but the final wave is basically coming out now. So, it's not something that we did all at once because that would be incredible, but very difficult over that many SKUs. So we handled it with the high priority SKUs first and then, managed it through the summer.
Okay, great. So it wasn't as tight as everyone might think.
Very fast, yeah.
Yeah, I still think it's pretty tight. So, and really great work in such a short time frame, which leads me to the next question, which everybody has been wanting to ask is how many designers worked on it? What was the Chase design team total on this project?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we had a core team that was working on this project, and we pulled in an additional designer as needed here and there. But the core team, I would say, is about 5 to 6 designers. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
And that includes myself as a design director and Paula as a creative director in that. So yeah, given the amount of work, we have to be pretty nimble, pretty quick, and pretty inspired to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Wow. I don't know if this can be answered, so you can go past if you don't want to answer this. But what was the budget for this project?
Yeah, we're not going to answer that.
It
was okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, guys.
That's between Chase and Häagen-Dazs. But thank you for understanding.
Yes, no, I knew. I just wanted to make sure. But yes, that's just can't answer that. And were any new materials considered for the packaging in the system, or materials were kept the same for the pints and for all the packaging that you created?
All the materials were maintained to be the same. We weren't going to make any kind of structural material change, structural shape or material change.
Perfect. Another question that we have is, let's see here. It's a budget question, of course. We're not going to answer that. What you mentioned that a brief is really important in the process. What makes a really good brief, in your opinion, Rachel?
Well, I have my opinion, and I think it'll be great for Jon to add his too, because it is really as good as it is. It needs to be clear for your partner. But in my opinion, I think you really have to know what you're looking for and what you're going to rate success with. So you can say, and Jon and I talked quite a bit about this. We want to be a luxury brand. Well, what's your definition of luxury, right? What are the codes of luxury that are the right thing for this brand? And I need to make sure I'm very clear on that. That's just an example. And I think the other parts that we talked about is, what's really mandatory and what's a nice to have, and being really okay with it, right? Because as soon as you hand that brief over to the agency, they run, and you don't want to waste your time or their time by chasing down something that you're not going to like. So I think clarity is very important. Being succinct. Visual briefs, I think, also are very, very helpful. So again, it communicates more than just a word, right? We have feelings, we have, color, and, all those things help to craft a vision. And I think that's really important. Jon, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, from a creative perspective, I think a good brief has a clear point of view, right? We often will get a brief that is like, hey, we want it to stand out on shelf. We want it to be authentic. We want it to be like, there's like keywords that you see in a lot of briefs that don't have a lot of a point of view to it, right? And I think what was so successful about this brief was that there was a strategy that was already started that had a clear point of view that we were able to add our strategic thinking to. And so, like, I think having a clear point of view in where you want to go in a brief, like Rachel and her team did, I think made a huge difference in how this project went. Because we were able to put that to the test, right? Like, because the brief was like, hey, we want to refresh, we want to keep these things, but we're aspiring to this. And so when we presented our round one, we did the refresh part, and then we challenged to see, hey, are you actually willing to go to what you're aspiring to, right? And so that back and forth and that conversation that we had, it was a good brief. We tested the brief, and then we came into alignment pretty quickly because of it. So kudos, yeah.
Great answer. Okay, this is the last question, and it's a good one. Were there any reservations at launch? Were you nervous, worried about the relaunch when it happened?
Hell no, absolutely not. We had no reservations. I think, we had so much confidence with the work being so on point with our strategy. It came together beautifully. I said in my opening how proud I am of this work, and it's not just me. It's like our entire company has felt so much pride and confidence about this for Häagen-Dazs, and again, the transformation brand on track out in the market with our communications. It's just been amazing. So we didn't have that doubt. We felt so excited to reveal it to the world. So that was me. I don't know, Jon, if you had that moment yourself. You're like, but it was just, I'm so excited. I was like waiting for it to happen.
No, we were excited at Chase. And, I think the biggest thing that always is in the back of my mind when designing for a brand as iconic as Häagen-Dazs is, you have a history of brand loyalists, right? There are consumers that have, bought this product for a long time. They love it. They're used to it. They know what it looks like. So how do you not alienate them? But then also, bring in the new consumer, right? The younger, more energetic, right? And so that's always in the back of my mind, like, oh no, are we gonna, piss off the brand loyalists? And luckily, we didn't do that.
It was a success.
We've seen such a favorable response. Our influencers and the partners and consumers like just loving it, and that's our end goal. That's what motivates me, and we've really seen that great acceptance, which has been wonderful.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and I really loved this presentation in particular because of the numbers, the success of it. You can redesign something, but if it doesn't do well in market, then the design and how it does in market go hand in hand. And I love that this presentation really included that and all that information, Rachel. So it helps kind of solidify what we, as designers, what we do for a living, and that it's a success, and that's all that really matters. Okay,
I'm going to add just one thing. Sorry, if I just add one thing, I know we're almost time.
No.
It's everything beyond. It's packaging and other things, and I think that's really important. I think that's where Chase is wonderful. They understand packaging is one of the really important elements. But if you're going to reposition a brand, it can't just be packaging. You've really got. This is for the marketers who might be listening in. It can't just be, hey, an amazing marketing communication that you think is going to resonate with, whatever you're trying to do. It can't just be packaging. It should come together in an ideal world. And I think that's what really made this effective for us. So that's my last little tidbit to pass along.
No, I love it. It's great. I'm going to put down here Chase's Instagram. You guys can follow Chase, and obviously you can follow Häagen-Dazs US. I'll put it here too. Give it a good follow. And maybe if you message Chase Design Group's Instagram and have any other questions, they might answer. I don't know, Jon, who handles it over there, but maybe they can get into your DMs, and if you have any further questions but there it is, and you can give them a follow. I really, really want to thank both of you for joining us. I really, really enjoyed this presentation. We had so many questions, so many invasive questions like the budget, but we had really good things. A lot of people were really curious about this design, so I love that. I want to thank you both for doing this with us, and we really appreciate it.
Can I give a quick shout out?
Sure.
I forgot to mention the production team back at Chase, because they rocked it. Like, with as much as fast as we had to design this, our production team had to parallel path with us, and in order to get this out, like, they were rock stars. So good job.
Oh, I love production. They're the MVPs at the end. So So thank you both, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.